Am I the asshole for telling my sister she's not allowed to bring her homemade food to Thanksgiving because her cooking is ruining the meal? Every year, our family does a big Thanksgiving dinner. We all typically bring a dish or two. My sister, who's a lovely person in every other way, insists on cooking something homemade every time. The issue? She's not a great cook. And I don't mean just not great. I mean she has somehow managed to turn classic dishes into borderline inedible creations. For context, last Thanksgiving, she showed up with her special recipe stuffing that was over-seasoned with random spices like cinnamon and cardamom. It was dry and the flavors were confusing and totally off for stuffing. Only one person took a small bite and the rest went untouched. Another year, she brought a green bean casserole that had some kind of strange chewy texture. She later admitted that she used coconut milk and almond flour to experiment. No one wanted seconds of that either. This year, I'm hosting Thanksgiving. Since I'm responsible for putting it all together, I wanted to keep the menu consistent so that people could actually enjoy a cohesive meal. I thought I'd avoid drama by asking her to bring non-food items instead, like wine, soda, or even some flowers. I explained to her very kindly, I thought, that I just wanted to make things easy and streamlined, and I'd handle the main dishes. But she didn't take it well. She got offended and told me that I was controlling and shutting her out of the family gathering. She then accused me of making her feel inadequate and said that Thanksgiving is about everyone contributing, not me deciding what's acceptable. I told her that everyone appreciates her efforts, but that she could contribute in other ways and still be a part of it. She doubled down and said that she's bringing her famous green bean casserole whether I like it or not.
That's a threat. That's a threat at this point.
I don't think it's famous for the right reasons.
Now my mom and a couple of other family members have chimed in saying that I should have just let her bring whatever she wants because it's Thanksgiving and it's the thought that counts. They're acting like I'm committing some huge offense by wanting the food to be enjoyable for everyone and not having random experimental dishes that no one will eat. But I feel like I'm just trying to keep the meal enjoyable and frankly edible. I don't think it's wrong to want guests to enjoy the food, especially since I'm putting a lot of effort in here to host. Am I being unreasonable here? Am I the asshole? And then there's updates.
Ooh.
Update. All right, well, things have escalated fast.
Uh-oh.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks to everyone who's offered advice. I tried to compromise, but it's already turning into a whole thing, and Thanksgiving is still a few weeks away. After our last conversation, my sister was being pretty cagey about what she planned to make, so I reached out to my mom, hoping she could help smooth things over. Instead, she got defensive, saying I'm overthinking and that it's just one dish. I told her I wasn't sure if it was just one dish anymore, especially after hearing about my sister's grocery haul, including canned oysters and edible glitter.
Biological warfare.
Canned oysters is wild.
That's demonic, actually.
Then my mom let it slip that my sister has been hard at work on some creative menus. on some creative menu she's planning as her Thanksgiving surprise. Apparently, she's been telling the family group chat, which I wasn't included in, by the way,
Ooh.
that I'm being controlling and that she wants to expand everyone's palate with something truly unique. To top it off, my cousin sent me a screenshot from the group chat where my sister said she's bringing not one but 3 dishes to Thanksgiving now. She's calling them her Thanksgiving trio experience.
Oh, no.
Oh my God.
Complete with their own settings and little menu cards she's designing. I'm officially panicking because I have no idea what she's planning to serve, and from what I've heard, it's not remotely traditional. At this point, half the family thinks I'm overreacting, while the other half is texting me with things like, is she really bringing glittered sweet potatoes? I feel stuck. If I try to control it anymore, I'm the bad guy. But if I don't, Thanksgiving might turn into a tasting event for my sister's avant-garde cooking. So yeah, Thanksgiving is a few weeks away and it's already becoming a family spectacle. I don't know whether to brace myself or just preemptively order pizza. Update. So Thanksgiving is now a little over 2 weeks away and somehow things have escalated even further than I thought. I thought maybe my sister's Thanksgiving trio experience would be the peak of the drama. Well, turns out I was wrong. Since the last update, my sister has become fully committed to making her dishes the main attraction.
Oh, no. Okay.
She's been dropping hints in the family group chat, which I'm still not included in, but shout out to my cousin for the screenshots, about how this Thanksgiving will be one to remember.
Oh,
And calling it her Thanksgiving debut.
okay.
She's apparently been referring to herself as the Thanksgiving head chef.
This can't be real.
And has hinted that she's bringing some kind of culinary surprise centerpiece that will transform the whole experience. From what I can piece together, she's planning a main statement dish in addition to her original 3 side dishes. I'm picturing something equally bizarre, but on a much larger scale. And honestly, I'm terrified. If her green bean casserole was already pushing it, I can't imagine what she thinks is worthy of being a centerpiece. Then, to make things even weirder, my mom texted me privately and suggested that I step back this year and let my sister shine since she's excited about her contributions.
That's not the word you should use. That's crazy.
My mom thinks if we just give her this moment, it'll make her happy and she'll get it out of her system. She even hinted that maybe I should focus on decorations and drinks instead of the main dishes, which feels like an attempt to turn hosting over to my sister without actually saying it. So now I'm left with a choice. Go along with my mom's plan and let my sister essentially hijack Thanksgiving, or keep pushing back and risk a family showdown. I just wanted a nice Thanksgiving with dishes everyone would enjoy, but it seems like I'm either about to hand over the whole meal to her or prepare for some serious drama. Thanksgiving isn't here yet, and it already feels like a circus. I'm half tempted to just sit back and see what chaos unfolds, but part of me is still worried about subjecting the whole family to whatever artistic statement she has planned. Maybe suggest that the entire dinner be at either your sister's house or your mother's house. That way you can go and just enjoy the chaos without having to clean up before or after, which is something to really think about.
She like hires a team of people like coming in. They're like, they got ladders. Like, what do you bring into my house?
Update. Here we are the day before Thanksgiving and things have continued to spiral.
How?
I decided to let my sister move forward with her trio experience since pushing back more would only make things worse. I thought we had a plan. She'd bring her dishes and I'd make sure there was plenty of other options to keep the peace. This morning, my mom let me know that my sister is now adding a surprise dish to her contributions.
What is happening?
She's been very secretive about what it is, which has everyone nervous about her after her past attempts. My mom thinks it's sweet that my sister is putting in so much effort, but a few other family members are not as optimistic. My cousin texted me privately asking if I had any backup food ready, and my dad casually mentioned bringing extra rolls, just in case.
We're just smashing rolls.
At this point, I've decided to stick with the plan and let her have her moment. I'll still have a few traditional dishes on hand so no one goes hungry.
Good.
Tomorrow will probably be chaotic, but it should at least make for a memorable holiday. Wish me luck. I'll update after Thanksgiving if anything noteworthy happens. Thanksgiving dinner is officially over, and I genuinely don't know where to start.
Oh, God.
I feel like I just lived through a fever dream of culinary chaos and family drama, and I need a moment to breathe before I even process everything. Yes. My cousin and I are heading out for drinks to dissect all of it because honestly, what just happened deserves its own Netflix special.
Oh.
I'll post photos later when I get home, but for now...
There's photos?
I didn't see photos, but I might go look on their page because I didn't see photos. But for now, let me give you the rundown. So my sister showed up earlier than expected, which I should have seen coming. She came in like a storm, carrying not just her 3 dishes, but also this giant platter wrapped in foil, which she was clearly trying to make a big deal about. She immediately starts rearranging the table, moving my dishes to the sides so hers could take center stage. She even brought her own table runner and candles, saying something about setting the mood for a creative dining experience. I decided not to fight her on it because at this point, I just wanted to get through with the night without a blow up. Her trio experience was, well, let's just say it was everything I feared and more. She started with a glittery sweet potato mash that somehow managed to taste like a mixture of sugar and sand.
How do you mess? How do you mess that up?
Sugar and sand.
The glitter wasn't even edible glitter.
Oh my
no.
god!
Okay, that's actually
No.
crazy. No
Maniacal.
way. I just gave her the benefit of the doubt.
It was craft glitter, which I didn't realize until one of the kids said, "This is crunchy." And I looked closer. Then there was this cranberry and oyster relish.
No.
Yes, oysters and cranberries.
This is one. She probably called it a casserole too.
Oh my
That's
god.
crazy.
Don't you dare.
So awful.
Casseroles don't deserve that, Brandon.
It looked like someone had spilled jam into clam chowder.
Oh.
And the smell alone was enough to make me lose my appetite. Finally, she brought a pumpkin curry casserole that had raisins in it for some reason, and this weird fishy smell that clung to the air for way too long.
You're lying.
I'm not.
You're not even reading.
It's
You're
right
not
here.
reading that.
Maddie's doing a Mad Libs thing where she just says random things together.
There's no way that
yeah.
no way no
you think
human
about-
in their right brain would put those together.
But the piece de resistance was her surprise centerpiece dish, which turned out to be a turkey gelatin mold.
No, like from the 50s?
No way.
Yes, she took ground turkey, mixed it up with some kind of broth and seasonings, and turned it into a wobbly, translucent mold shaped like a turkey. She even garnished it with parsley and cherry tomatoes to make it festive. I wish I were kidding. The entire table went silent when she unveiled it.
That's not what you want.
Except for my cousin, who immediately started coughing to cover up what was, I'm pretty sure, a laugh.
I would die. I would be dying.
Someone just starts gagging.
Things hit their peak when my mom, who had been defending her the entire time, took one bite of the gelatin mold and just froze. She didn't say anything, but you could see the regret on her face. My sister, noticing the lack of enthusiasm, decided to go on this long speech about how Thanksgiving food is too boring and how she's trying to challenge our palates. She even called my ham and mashed potatoes uninspired, which was rich coming from someone serving glitter sand potatoes.
Oh my god.
The breaking point came when my aunt, who was usually the peacekeeper, tried the gelatin mold and actually gagged.
Mm-hmm.
She tried to be polite about it, but my sister saw her reaction and completely lost it. She started yelling about how nobody in this family supports her and how we're all stuck in the past with our unoriginal foods. She even accused me of sabotaging her dishes by not hyping them up enough to everyone. At this point, half the table was trying not to laugh, and the other half was just staring at their plates, probably wondering how we got here. My sister ended up storming out of the house, but not before saying something along the lines of, "You'll regret not appreciating my vision when I'm famous." She left most of her food behind, which my cousin and I quietly threw out after dinner. The rest of the night actually turned out pretty nice once the tension was gone. My dad's emergency ham was a lifesaver, and everyone agreed that next year we're either going to a restaurant or just skipping Thanksgiving altogether. So now I'm sitting here wondering how this even became my life. I'll post photos later because you all need to see the turkey gelatin mold to believe it. But for now, I'm going to grab a drink or 3 with my cousin to laugh/cry over everything that went down. This Thanksgiving was truly something else, and I don't know whether to feel relieved it's over or brace myself for whatever fresh chaos my sister has planned for the next year.
That's Mayana, and she just got jumped by her own cheerleading squad at Morgan State University. We all know hindsight is 20/20. She said that when she looked back on the entire situation, she realized these girls were never actually her friend from the beginning anyway. There was a lot of red flags that she was able to later on notice and recognize. At one point, things between her and these group of girls had gotten so bad, her and her best friend were not only writing down a list of everything that these girls were doing to her, on top of that, she always felt so uncomfortable. She basically had her boyfriend on the phone with her all the time, and he would would hear all of the horrible things that they say to her. It also got really touchy when these girls would try to drag Mayana for having a white boyfriend, and as a black woman, she just felt really uncomfortable with this commentary because she was like, me having a white boyfriend doesn't take away a single thing about me being a black woman. And then also their little comments were just really, really rude. They would just say things about her stuff, about her. This whole issue is actually surrounded around a boy. What ended up happening was Mayana has a roommate. She just named her roommate. So her roommate is talking to this one particular football player. Come to find out, there's people on the cheerleading squad that are also talking to this boy, right? One of those girls was in Mayana's stunt team. She ends up coming up to her one day after practice and being like, hey, do you know this football player? And she's like, kind of. And she's like, asking her, like, do you know who he talks to? Obviously Mayana knows he talks to her roommate, but she kind of plays dumb and she's like, no, I just know that he's really friendly. Mayana's teammate on the stunt team goes over to Mayana's other little friends in that fun group and asks them like the same questions. They end up offering the information she was looking for, and then vice versa, she offers up information as well. So then they end up getting a text message in the group chat from those two girls that gave up the information saying, hey, meet in the lounge, let's discuss. So they get to the lounge, they spill the tea, and then it comes out later on that Mayana was asked that question first and she didn't say anything. And her roommate's acting like, I don't even care. I don't even care that you found out. Like, I don't even care that you didn't come and tell me. Like, it's fine. She's acting super nonchalant. While her teammates, though, the names of the teammates that she gave was T, M, J, K, and A. J and A are like the aggressors, right? So once they kind of like spilled the tea, they turn over to Mayana and they say, Mayana, you're weird because when that girl came up to you and asked you about this information, you told her you didn't know anything. And that's like weird of you to do. And Mayana's looking at them like, so you're upset that I knew information and decided to protect my roommate and not tell this girl that, yeah, like my roommate's talking to this man as well? Like, that's weird, you know? I think what they were actually upset about was that once she found out that that other girl was dating that football player, that she didn't run back to her roommate and inform her about this. And so they're trying to like all gang up on Mayana, and she's just standing there on the phone with her best friend like, I don't really care what you guys are talking about. She ends up leaving. So after leaving the meeting, she has dinner with her stunt team instead of her little friend group, and I guess that upsets them. Then that same day, her best friend's mom ends up sending her a text message like giving her a little bit of motivation, being like, don't let these girls ever mess with you, kind of thing. I guess she ended up posting that message on her story, and those girls saw that. And mind you, Mayana takes a break from them. She like distanced herself. She's just like, okay, these girls clearly have some issues. Like, there's no reason they should be getting mad at me because I didn't spill the information. So one day, Mayana's walking down the hallway. She runs into the little friend group, and one of them, A, who she doesn't even really talk to that often, is like, hey, we need to talk about this friendship. Like, we need to have another meeting about it. And she's like, well, I have something to do on campus right now. We can do it later. So later on they meet. So the topic of this whole conversation is pretty similar to the first meeting that they had, where they're just attacking Mayana and just being like, do you think that we're jealous of you? Because they saw the text message at this point. So they're like, do you think we're jealous of you? We actually just think that you're a horrible person because you didn't share information. You didn't spill tea when you knew about it, you know? And the roommate is just sitting there. She's not doing anything. During this meeting, it was mostly T going off on her, being like, do you think I'm jealous? Do you think I'm jealous? Like, really being aggressive, really coming at her. And mind you, Mayana's keeping her cool. She's just sitting there like, are you done yet? T's being so dramatic. She gets up and walks through the door like, I'm leaving, and then ends up not even leaving. So then all of a sudden T starts saying, you don't like M. You know that you don't like M. And Mayana looks at them and she's like, it's not that I don't like M, it's like I don't like the way she talks to me. And Mayana's like, I understand why she talks to me crazy. I allowed it one time and then she thought she could do it, you know, over and over again, and she got comfortable. Again, her roommate is just staring there looking at the wall. All of a sudden she decides that she wants to get smart. So she gets up and she starts yelling at Mayana, and Mayana is like, I'm done being cool, I'm letting off. So she starts going off. You know how her mentality works out. All of a sudden everybody gets up and starts yelling at Mayana like, you shouldn't be yelling at anybody, you can't be angry, like you're the one that's in the wrong, da 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 da. And at this point Mayana had enough. She was like, you know what, I don't even have to be here. She grabbed her stuff and left the room. And then right when she was leaving the room, T is gonna go and say, yeah, get the hell out. And she's like, girl, I'm already leaving. So the next day at practice, it gets announced that there's going to be a rookie team meeting. Because of the class casuals, they weren't able to meet that same day, so they ended up having the meeting the next day. And she can see that Jay was like physically upset that they couldn't meet that day, and she had like a piece of paper in her hand. The next day, the meeting begins, and at this point, Mayana is like shaking her boots because she's like, what are these people about to talk about? They start the meeting, and they're really just talking about how everybody needs to bring a speaker. They can't be trying to practice without speakers. Then they're like, okay, like on to the next topic. Jay gets up and she's like, we don't like how you bumped A at practice, you ignored us at the game, and also we don't like the way that you talk to us. And you know, Mayana is stunned at this point. She's like, okay, well, let me just address every single thing you just said. So she turned over to A and she's like, A, when did I bump you? And she's like, oh, it was like a few days ago during practice. And she's like, well, I apologize, I'm sorry, I don't remember doing that. If I did, I apologize. Then she looked over to everybody else and she was like, when did I not talk to you guys after the game? And they're like, oh, you know, the day after we had that meeting in the upstairs and we were asking you about like why you didn't spill the tea. She's like, well, obviously a day after we had like an intense conversation, I'm not gonna be buddy with you guys, but I didn't mean to ignore you. And then she didn't bother kind of addressing the whole like you can talk me any way you want thing. So even though Mayana apologized at that point, the girls didn't care. Jay and A stand up and they start going in again about Mayana not saying anything about the tea when she found out and not telling her roommate. And they're just like going in and nobody else is talking. The other girls that are involved in the situation are not talking. It's just those two girls, Jay and A, and then Mayana defending herself. The conversation ended up being dragged for so long. They got kicked out of that room. They had to go looking around their campus to find another place to like meet and actually discuss this. Other people are starting to chime in and they don't even have the full picture because they only know the story from the friend group side. Mayana was like looking at the girl that was talking like, girl, when you first came around, you were talking hella mess about your roommate. And so the meeting that was set up to actually kind of like solve the issue really just created a bigger one. Mind you, Jay is getting more and more irritated. She starts threatening Mayana and being like, I'm gonna slap you. The interesting thing about all of this is that Mayana keeps calling her roommate Miss Nonchalant. And true to that name, every time Mayana asks the roommate, like, are you mad at me? Are you cool? Like, how do you feel about the situation? She just keeps saying like, I'm fine, I'm fine. Like the roommate was like, I don't know why the girls are still mad. They'll get over it. It'll be fine. So a family visit for her college came around and she was really excited to have her mom join and everybody else because her mom was really sick at the time. So she was really surprised when her mom actually was able to make it out. They're at the football game. They're watching her cheerlead. I guess other family members of other cheerleaders ended up coming up to her sister and her mom and telling her like, hey, what do you guys think about everything that's going on? And her sister and her mom are looking at her like, we don't know anything about this. Mayana didn't tell us about any of this, drama that's happening. And so after the game, immediately her sister walks up to her and she has like a stink look on her face. And Mayana's like, damn, what's wrong? And her sister walks up, she's like, why didn't you tell me what's going on down here? Like, so they go back to Mayana's dorm room and her sister walks in and her roommate and the mother are there. So Mayana's sister ends up looking over to her and being like, hey, I just want to know, like, what happened between you and my sister? Like, when we left, like, you guys were really tight. Like, what ended up happening? Like, why are you guys letting, Mayana get ganged up on? Mayana's sister also asked, like, why is Mayana's stuff ending up broken or stolen? And then the roommate's going to turn around and be like, well, my stuff is ending up stolen too. Like, it's not just hers. Mayana was having this issue where she would open the door for the friend group and they would come over and they would just, like, barge past her and they wouldn't say anything. They'd be super rude. And so they also brought that up. The roommate and the mother were like, we addressed these issues, we talked to them, we're not going to have these issues moving forward. And at that time, Mayana and the roommate both looked at each other and said, we're cool, we actually like each other, like there's no drama. When Mayana and her sister are leaving for dinner, they end up running into J.A., their mothers and their mother's friends. Her sister seems very straightforward. So she asked them, like, who has a problem with my sister? The only person that was really saying something was A, and A is like, well, if we do have a problem with your sister, what about it? All of a sudden, Jace just starts barking, just starts going off. A and Jay's mother are trying to hold back Jay. Mayana looks over and Jay's mom has her arm on her sister's neck and she's like, dude, we gotta go. Like, they're doing too much. I guess that really pissed off Jay that they were just gonna walk away and not engage with them. So she ends up grabbing the shoes that Mayana's sister came to change in Mayana's dorm room and threw it at Mayana. So then, boom, everybody starts fighting. At this point, Mayana's holding on to Jay. Jay's mom is choking Mayana's sister, and then A is hitting Mayana's sister while she's being chokehold. Mayana also wanted to clarify that her brother never stepped in. He never hit on anybody. There was other football players and stuff that got involved at the end of the day. If her brother was swinging on women, don't you think these football players would have went like ham on him? She didn't appreciate that narrative being spread, especially when her brother really did get hit by A and he did not hit back. All this chaos is going around. Mayana looks over and she sees like a familiar face. When she looks closer, her roommate's in it now. Her roommate is swinging too and she's like, what the hell? Like, where did you even come from? So then Mayana tries to lunge at her roommate, but she's getting socked in the back by the other girls. And then she looks over and she's trying to help her sister at this point because her sister looks like her eye got hurt. While they're trying to check on her eye, the other girls start sneaking her sister. Finally, people come out, they break up the fight, they set send these girls in their separate directions. They're grabbing their things off the ground, and all Jay can keep yelling back is like, you're ugly, you're ugly. Like, she had really nothing else to say. Police get called. They go to the dorms to talk to the girls. The roommate and the mother literally try to act like they had nothing to do with it. Like, they didn't even know that that situation happened. Whole time, like, you were in there. And then the roommate ends up saying like, oh, I went in there to break everything up, but then somebody hit me, so then I started fighting. Mayanna's mom literally told the police officer, go in there, get everybody's names, addresses, phone numbers, all the information that you need that's necessary. Did Officer Roberts do that? No, he did not. So when Mayanna went to the campus police to turn in a report, she didn't have the necessary things. That entire day, Mayanna and her family were given the runaround and basically told at the end of the day, like, oh, we can't even help you right now. Mayanna and her family did not appreciate how the school, the campus, the police, how anybody, even the coaches and the teams handled this situation. It did not feel like there was going to be a reasonable solution. All they were telling Mayanna was like, we can move you to a different housing building, but the housing buildings that they were trying to move her to is connected through a dining room to the housing building that she was just living in, where these girls will still see her and interact with her. So she was like, you know what, my family doesn't feel like I need to stay here. I don't feel that way either. So that same day, they rented a car, they packed up all of her stuff, and she left Morgan State. And when she went back for the hearing, after they finally granted her a hearing, mind you, during the hearing, Jay and A are crying. The whole time they were trying to spin a narrative where they're completely destroying her character and trying to say that Mayanna is a bad person, and then also trying to paint this picture that she invited her sister and her brother to come down and handle her stuff. And she's like, no, it was just family week, just like it was for everybody else. They basically were like, yeah, you can't come back to campus. You're banned from campus until August 2025. But the day that she packed up her dorm, she knew she was never going to go back. The fact that this fight started over a boy and her not sharing information is absolutely wild. Honestly, college is supposed to be a really fun, exploratory time. I'm so sorry that you had to deal with such like unnecessary drama. I'm glad you're safe. I hope 2025 is beautiful. I hope whatever God has in store for you is 10 times a fold whatever you would have received at Morgan State University. Morgan State University, do better. Whichever cop she talked to, do better.
My boyfriend asked me to keep up with my body because he's a high value man. Let's get into it. I moved in with my boyfriend about a week ago, and recently I've discovered a little bit of a dark side to his personality. Now, before I get too far into it, I want to preface this by saying we had been dating for about 6 months and everything was going perfectly fine. He is super sweet, very kind, just like very much wants to like take care of me in a way. And to me, with my daddy issues, that's very attractive. We had only been dating for about 6 months when he asked me to move in with him. And prior to this, I have my own job. I pay my own bills. I lived on my own. Like, I was very, very independent. But he wanted me to move in so that he could offer me like a rent-free life, essentially, and quote unquote, take care of me. So I was hesitant at first, but then decided, you know what, like, what do I have to lose? Let's take a chance. We're young. Like, what's the worst that could happen, right? Like, he was just such a good, like, seemed like a genuine person. So since we were going to be living together, he thought it would be a good idea that I meet his mom. And so he invites her over for dinner, which was totally fine. I was very excited to meet her. But this is where things kind of took a turn. At first, upon her arrival, things were going very smoothly. She was very sweet to me and just like gave me a huge hug as I did her. She brought wine, like just seemed very, very sweet. Now, I didn't grow up like super poor or anything, but we definitely lived like, you know, within our means or below our means. Like my family was not super wealthy. I didn't have like all of the super nice clothes that some of my friends had or anything like that. But we were, you know, like your normal middle class family, I thought. Now, my boyfriend at the time, like, it is very obvious that he came from a more higher class family, if you will. Now, look, I've seen the movies, okay? I know that sometimes when higher class people get with lower class people, there tends to be an issue. I thought that was only in movies. I never believed that it would be like real life, that people were really like that. Like, that just didn't make sense to me. But anyway, nonetheless, so I meet her. She seems very, very sweet. Dinner's going great at first. And then she starts making these like little comments, these little jabs. It starts out with her just telling him like how special he is and how of a high volume man he is and how everyone respects him and just like all of these like weird compliments, I guess. But it was very much giving off like, mommy's obsessed with you, mommy dearest vibes. Like, it was just almost uncomfortable. Like, I felt like I should leave. I don't know. My mom doesn't act like that with my brother, so I just was really confused by it. And I feel like, you know, our parents love us, but I've not experienced that type of obsession before, okay? And so as she's like complimenting, you know, him and all of those things, that's when the jabs start. And she'll look at me and she'll be like, so what do you do for a living? What are your future plans? Like, normal questions, but it was just the way that she was asking them, you know, like it was very much putting off a vibe as if she were judging in a way. She was definitely judging, actually. I'm not even going to try to play it like she wasn't. She was definitely judging me. And at one point when I answered her, I watched her turn and look at my boyfriend, like giving him a look like, you know the look. So after the dinner, everything went kind of like back to normal a little bit. I never said anything. Like, I was very much uncomfortable and just felt very judged. But again, like, even though we were living together, this is still like a pretty new relationship. And I know we were still getting to know each other. That was my first mistake, was moving in with him. But sue me, okay? I'm young and trying to enjoy my life, all right? And I thought that he was the one. So a week or so go by after this dinner with his mother, and this is when he starts making comments like about what I'm wearing, about what I'm eating, just all, I don't know, uncomfortable comments about my appearance, what I'm doing, just things that he never really had done before. And it kind of caught me off guard a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I very much did not appreciate it. And so I said something to him, and his response is really what took me for a spin. That's when he told me that he felt like he was able to have an opinion on not only me, okay, but all women and the things that they wear and the things that they do, because he was such a high valued man, okay? And now listen, I said he came for money. I did not say he had money, okay? He made decent money, but he wasn't like a millionaire or anything. So very, very much into himself. And it all came back as soon as he made that little comment about being a high valued man. I immediately remembered his mother saying that same thing. And so that's when I got a little bit worried. And I talked to my mom about it. And my mom's like, girl, you need to pack up your things and leave now. Like, you made a dumb decision, pay for your consequences, but get out, because he sounds like a dangerous psychopath. And I'm like, okay, mom, way to be dramatic. But also at the same time, I'm like, you know, mom might be right. This man might be crazy. So what would you do? Would you pack up all your things and move out and count your losses? Or would you... No, that's really the only choice, huh?
An older man DM'd me a story about what happened after he found his staircase in the woods. He said he doesn't tell this story very often because he's not proud of his part in this. He wanted to be anonymous because he said he doesn't want anyone to know his history who doesn't already know it, and there's a certain stigma attached to people with mental illness, so he doesn't want to come off as crazy to anyone who might not know this history about him. Trigger warning on this story because it does get a little bit dark, a little bit violent. We're going to call him Toby to respect his privacy, and the story takes place about 10 years ago, although Toby is 56 now. He was hiking near Mammoth Cave in Kentucky with his then 15-year-old son and 12-year-old daughter. Hiking was a normal activity for them. They lived not too far from there in Kentucky, but his wife wasn't with them that day. Toby said up until this point in his life, he lived a relatively normal life. He had no history of mental illness or anger issues. He had a relatively good relationship with his wife, normal squabbles, and he worked the same job for almost 20 years at that point. He said he was living a normal American suburban life. So him and his kids come across a staircase in the middle of the woods. His son immediately goes to go up it, and he goes, hey, make sure like it's stable. Actually, you know what? Let me go up first. He says his family were like outdoorsy people. So it wasn't the first time that they had come across a staircase in the woods. A lot of times they're just left from old settlements or whatever, but this was the first time they saw that particular staircase. So he tells his son that he's going to climb it first, and he started descending the steps. He noticed that they were very clean, despite it was fall weather. There were no leaves on the staircase. So he walks all the way up to the top. He notices like it's a little bit rickety. It doesn't really seem safe for his son. So he's standing at the top. His son's like, how is it? Can I come up? And he said out of nowhere, he hears a voice clear as day say, unalive them. He said it wasn't his voice, it wasn't his son's voice, it wasn't his daughter's voice. So he is like shocked. He looks around, there's nobody else out there. But he said he audibly heard the voice. So he just is like, what is going on? So he climbs down the stairs. He tells his son, don't go up there. It's not safe. The voice that he heard kind of shook him a little bit because he had never had a violent urge toward his children. He loved them very much. They're driving home and he's struck with the urge to drive into oncoming traffic. They get home. His wife's like, how was the hike? He tells her it was fine. He doesn't tell her about the voice or anything. He said in the first few weeks after that hike, his mood changed. It was like a gray fog settled over everything. He was getting angry at like very minor inconveniences. He was often hearing voices that told him to harm himself and others. He would wake up in the middle of the night from nightmares and cold sweats. And him and his wife, we're going to just call her Kelly, they were arguing about everything. He would snap at her, and on one occasion he put his hands on her, which he says he still regrets to this day. After that happened, I guess he gave her a black eye. She took the kids and they were all staying at her sister's house, and his voices only got worse. He was still going to work. He was trying to manage it. He had actually made an appointment with a therapist to try to get it under control, but before he went to the therapist's office, he ends up snapping at his boss over a minor email. I guess the boss said that he forgot to do something, and he marched into his boss's office and threatened his life. He said while he was staring at his boss, he was fuming. He looked at a pen that was sitting on his boss's table, and he had to fight the urge to stab him through the throat. Obviously, he gets fired. Security gets called. He is escorted out. He's driving home when a guy cuts him off in traffic. They pull up at a light. The guy and him are like MFing each other through the window, and all of a sudden he just snaps. He gets out of his car. He goes over to the other guy's car, tries the door. It opens. He pulls the guy out and beats the ever-living crap out of him. He said he beat him so badly that the man started having seizures, and he continued to kick him in the head. Obviously, he's arrested. He ends up getting an aggravated assault charge. He goes to jail. He was sentenced to 3 years, but he said for good behavior he was released after 18 months. After he was released, part of his release parole was court-ordered therapy. In therapy, he is diagnosed as a schizophrenic, and he said he's still living with that diagnosis today. He's trying to manage it. He still hears the voices. A lot of times they talk about going back to the staircase in the woods. He says he still continues to have nightmares about it. He is working on rebuilding the relationship with his kids, who have started kind of coming back around. He says he's turned to God. He's turned his life around, but every day is a struggle living with these voices. He says the staircase in the woods phenomenon is a rabbit hole, and he's explored it to the ends of the earth. A lot of other people, I guess, have gone up staircases and felt like they had something negative attached to them after ascending the stairs. He says his therapist just tells him that it's a mental disorder and that he is doing everything he can to manage it. But he ended his email with a warning. He said if you come across a staircase in the woods, absolutely don't go up it. And if you feel like you're struggling with mental health, it's better to talk to somebody now. Thanks, Toby, for sharing your story. I know it's really heavy. I wish you all the best and healing, and I hope everything gets better for you. Everybody else, keep sending me your spooky, weird, unbelievable things you think that no one would ever believe you or you don't want to tell. Keep sending me those stories. I'll keep adding them to this playlist.
This one is, am I the astronaut for losing it on my wife after she told my son to get out of the picture at my stepdaughter's birthday? I'm really struggling here and starting to feel like I'm losing my mind. I think I'm being gaslit. So what better place to get some clarity than Reddit? Here's the situation. I've been married to my wife for 8 years, and on the whole, we have a good relationship. She has 4 kids, 2 daughters, 2 sons, ages 11 to 16 from a previous relationship, and I have 1 son who's 10. Since day one, I've treated her kids as my own and done the best to support the family. Financially, it's a big load, but I'm happy to do it. We live together in a 5-bedroom house where each of her daughters has their own room. Her oldest son has his own, and her youngest son shares a room with my son. The main issue, and what's tearing me apart, is how she treats my son. She barely acknowledges him, rarely asks how he's doing, and generally acts like he's invisible. No, don't let it be this kind of person. Tonight, it hit a breaking point. We were celebrating her daughter's 11th birthday, and everyone was gathering to sing and take pictures. I told my son to get in with the group for a picture, which seemed fine. But then, right after the group photo, my wife looked at my son and told him, "Get out of the picture, move to the side. I want one with just my kids." Chew. My kids. I want one with just my kids. When you marry somebody with kids, they're all your kids. And when you have multiple bio kids that you bring into this and there's only one bonus kid, when you single that bonus kid out and exclude them from shit, it's amplified. I want one with just my kids. And you said this shit to him. I felt like my heart shattered at that moment. I completely lost it. I told her that we're supposed to be a blended family, that my son deserves to be treated like one of her own. I feel like she's drawing lines between her kids and my son, and it just doesn't sit right with me. For context, my son's biological mom passed away 2 years ago, supposedly from COVID complications, though she had a history of drug problems that might have worsened things. My son only has my wife now as a mother figure. I'm terrified that this rejection from her is going to hurt him deeply and cause psychological damage. Am I asking too much for her to treat him like part of the family? I don't want to be overreacting, but the way she flat out ignores him is painful to witness. Am I the astronaut for expecting her to step up and include him? No, you are not the astronaut for expecting her to do her job. There's more to the story. By the way, there's additional info from OP here, but we have to talk about this for a second, because when you got married, she married into your family. She took on your family as well. She took on your 10-year-old. Wait, was he 10? Is that right? Oh my gosh. They've been together since he's been 2, and he's 10 now. And his mom passed away 2 years ago. So when he was 8, and the only maternal figure in his life shuns him actively. And you know, she knows damn well what kind of damage she's doing. OP, you're sitting here wondering, you're worried about the damage that this could do. The damage is already happening. The damage has already been happening. The damage is happening right under your nose. I don't know how you can watch this happen and not have lost your shit before this moment, sir. I don't know how you can still be with somebody who treats your kid like this. And his mom passed 2 years ago, so he's with you full time, right? So full time, you are all he's got. He just happens to live in a house with all these other people. But you did him the disservice of bringing in the evil stepmother who actively shuns him, who actively ignores him, who actively will just walk right the by him and pretend like he doesn't exist. You're worried that might be damaging. Yeah, it's damaging. There better be some damn good redeeming qualities about this woman, because right now she just sounds evil. She is definitely going straight to ask on one. I don't care what information comes after this. The fact that she's capable of saying this to a child's face, who's supposed to be her responsibility, who she agreed to love and treat as one of her own when she married you and entered into a serious relationship with you. The fact that she's capable of spitting venom in a 10-year-old's face tells us everything we need to know about this woman. She's garbage. This is a garbage human being. How is this possible? I don't. OP, you're financially supporting the whole family. It's a big load, but you're happy to do it. So it's not like she can look at this and be like, he's taking resources away from my 4 kids. Or maybe that is a part of what she's thinking. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know what? That's not part of it, because standing in a picture doesn't eat up any resources. It just includes you in the family. But being willing to actively exclude him is being actively willing to do damage to a 10-year-old. She doesn't want this kid to think in any way, shape, or form that she's his mom. It's like she's working, she's doing extra work to make damn sure that he knows I'm not your mom. It is cruel, Jen. Yeah, this is just cruel. Oh, Nunya, damn. What is she doing when he's not around? OP, you need to have a conversation with your kid and be like, tell me everything. Tell me how shit this person really is. All right, additional info from OP. Before his mom died, I got him just every other weekend. The kids already had rooms. It was actually more like 3 years ago that she passed away. He's very close to his step-siblings. They live and accept him as their own, no problems there. At the time, it just made sense for him to be in the same room with the youngest boy. I am being told loud and clear she should be treating him as her own. So my assumption is I should do the same, and I have. I love all of my kids. Time out. OP says, I love all of my kids, including hers. She says, I want a picture with just my kids and excludes him. That's all you need to know. That's it. I've been with them since they were all very little. She absolutely isn't physically or verbally abusive. That you know of. As I said, she's just cold to him, but she's not very empathetic in general. I realize now I made a poor decision getting married. She was amazing to him prior to marriage. Now I've got myself in a pickle. But in spite of what people are saying, I'm not a bad person. I've just clearly had my head up my own ass on the fact that her being distant is harmful to him. I feel terrible, and now I'm going to do something about it. I don't think divorce is the answer to everything, but I will definitely file divorce if she doesn't agree to counseling and if I don't see a significant change in her behavior. We are talking about all this now, and she seems to understand and wants to change for the better. My hope is that we can work on this together and have an outcome that is good for everybody. Bullshit, sir. She's pacifying you. She's saying, yes. Oh, I can't believe I did that. I want to work on things and make it better. She knew exactly what she was doing. There's no way that this was an accident. This bitch is playing you.
My boyfriend's mother keeps putting an ingredient that I'm allergic to in all of her dishes. I have a garlic allergy and it's not lethal, like I wouldn't get anaphylaxis from it or anything. But the problem is that I'll get really bad asthma whenever I eat it, and then it will really affect my digestion later on. Everyone in my life knows that I can't have garlic and that I won't have garlic, and it honestly makes eating out a nightmare because of how prevalent it is. So usually my boyfriend and I will just have dates at our apartment and we'll cook for each other. But my boyfriend's mom has a family tradition and she insists that the whole family comes over once a month for a family dinner. She is a fantastic cook and she's usually a really nice lady to be around, but there's just one problem. She wants me and asks me to come every single time, but she always adds garlic to every single dish. At this point, I've just started to take an inhaler to her house and just eating the Hawaiian rolls that she always serves at every dinner. My boyfriend usually drives us and we just end up getting fast food directly after we leave her house. We have talked to her over and over again about the garlic, and I ask her nonstop to please not use garlic in any of the meals. Every time she always just says she doesn't understand why it's that big of a deal because it's not like you'll die. I've tried skipping these dinners, but she will throw a fit and then she will drag her entire family into it. I've been with my boyfriend for 3 years now and I'm best friends with his sister, and I'm honestly just at my wit's end. I just don't know how to get through to her about this.
Am I the asshole for wanting to cut off my dad because he took me off his family's Spotify account? Ooh, shots fired. I, 29 female, am the second youngest out of my mom and dad's biological children. My mom and dad divorced when I was 7, and until my dad met and married his current wife, I was always daddy's little princess. When he met my stepmom, she had 2 kids from her last marriage, which ended because her husband passed away. Even though I was hurting because my once happy, carefree life was torn apart, I was happy because we got to see my dad on the weekends and sometimes stay with him for a whole week because my mom still wanted us to have our dad. My stepmom was from Arizona and moved to San Diego to be with my dad because he didn't want to move away from us. A few years went by and we noticed we weren't going with my dad as often. When I asked my mom why we weren't going to my dad's house, she said, "Baby, I don't know how easily I can put this, but your dad moved a month ago to Arizona because he had a job opportunity there." I should note that my mom lied because the truth was my stepmom didn't want to live in San Diego anymore because she missed Arizona. I was hurt because he didn't tell us he would be leaving, and I was sad because I would really miss my dad. When I tried to call him, he was never available, and I would ask him to call me back no matter what the time was. I even asked my mom if she could wake me up when he would call. She would smile and promise me she would. On the rare occasions he would call back, he would tell me and my brothers to pack and get ready because he would come pick us up and take us to Arizona for the holidays. I would pack my bags so fast and wait in the living room. He would never come. Instead, he would call and say something came up and I would unpack. A few years later, my dad calls and says he has good news. Him and my stepmom got married and had a wedding. I remember the look on my mom's face when she saw my smile drop and tears fall. I asked him why I wasn't invited to the wedding, and he said, "I'm sorry, but it was a last-minute thing and we didn't have time to get you." Keep in mind, whenever we did go to Arizona for vacations, my mom was the one who would take time off work and school to drive us to him. My mind went to blaming me and, in a way, also blame my mom because I was daddy's little princess and he would never do that to me. This is making me so sad. After they got married, my dad and stepmom had my little sister, and even though this solidified him and my mom's divorce, I loved her. When we would visit, I loved having a little mini-me, but my stepmom made it apparent to tell my dad, You need to tell Alicia she cannot play with the baby 24/7. She would get mad at me for doing her hair and for dressing her to match me. I would be playing with her, and if she got hurt, my stepmom would ask me, what did you do to her? It got to the point where even my step-siblings would tell her to stop picking on me. When I was 12, I had to live with my dad for 1 year because my mom was having financial difficulties and needed to save so we could move to Las Vegas, where my oldest brother had been living, and told my mom it was for the best. I was sad because I wouldn't be with my mom, whom I'm so close with, but I was excited I was going to be with my dad. The whole year was the hardest time for me. He would buy my little sister whatever she wanted. My stepmom was still fighting with me. My dad would take her side more and would leave us at the house while she took my stepmom and her kids out because it was cheaper for them to go and we'd have to wait for our turn to go out, which was never. Wow, that is unbelievable. How can you take your stepkids out but not... What the... Some guys just get whipped. It's so sad to see. My mom called me though every night to tell me goodnight, and she would tell me how much she missed me. I remember asking her one night if she could hurry and get us a house in Las Vegas because I wanted to leave Arizona so bad. She said she was trying her hardest and that she missed us and would come soon to visit. When she did visit, I ran to her with tears saying please take me with her because my dad's wife was hard to live with. My mom had a talk with my dad and said she needs to realize that you had 7 kids before you met him and they mattered just as much as her kids. They didn't like the sound of that, so they both limited my calls with my mom and even would tell me that I couldn't call her. When the year was up, we moved to Las Vegas. But the pent-up aggression I had was still there. I acted out in my early teens. I made it hard for my mom and she didn't know how to handle me, so my dad took me back. This time, he was a born-again Christian and was super strict with me. I had a dress code and was not allowed to talk to boys. He would physically punish me and my little brother because my older siblings moved out and it was just my stepmom's kids. He would buy her and her kids whatever they asked for. If I asked for something, it was always met with, they need it more than you. Fast forward, I shaped up and moved back with my mom and distanced myself from my dad. When it was my 25th birthday, my dad called to tell me happy birthday and even apologized for how he treated me and my little brother, even stating he treated us harsher than her kids because she told him to. So, unbelievable. I forgave him and asked him if he could just treat my kids as he treated his other grandkids from my step-siblings, then we would be fine. He then doesn't call to ask how his grandkids are. He posts pictures often of step-siblings' kids, but none of my kids. When I brought this up with him, he said, well, they don't call me. I then told him they're kids. They shouldn't have to. Now that my kids are older, he asked for their phone numbers and even told me to join his Spotify family plan so I can listen to music without ads, and I agreed. He also put all of the kids in a group chat. When I would talk to him, it was very short with me and he gave me one-word answers. I one time posted a picture of me and he ignored it. When my little sister posted a picture, he showered her with compliments. Even though that hurt, I ignored it. It wasn't until the other day when he asked me if I still use Spotify, and I said yes, I do every day. He asked, can your niece, my stepsister's daughter, take your spot? I lost my mind. I put my phone down and cried. I cried because to me, the Spotify was a gift. Years of hurt, trauma, and betrayal kept flooding over me. My mom said she was very sorry for giving me a father who traded us for a new family, and finally I realized all the times my mom would lie for my dad to protect us from heartbreak. I want to leave my dad for good, but deep down my inner child is making excuses for him. So I want to know, is it justified to cut him off?